5 things I've learned in my home gym journey. So I've been doing this in this current situation about 10 years, 11 years. Even in college, I actually had a home gym space, really small, but I haven't consistently gone to a public gym since the first year or two of undergraduate. That's how much I love having my own gym space, like a sanctuary or my own little temple, as you will. So some of you guys have been following my own evolution. Most currently this gym, the building I actually built about 2.5 years ago was in my basement before. But I was on just equipment and the building itself. I can make a separate video. I haven't actually ever tallied it up, but that's in my pocket, not tax deductible, without getting anything back. Some people think it's a dumb decision, but I think it's one of the best decisions I've ever made. Even though it doesn't make any sense financially, like it's way more about money. Our minds have been polluted and poisoned to judge everything, to value everything based on its potential monetary value. And it just poisons our mind. This capitalistic Western mindset has completely poisoned us. It really has. We can't see anything outside of whatever its monetary value is or is not. Other than the pure enjoyment of doing something, you just experience the elation for me when I come in here, independent of how much money I've spent. It's priceless. So number 5, things I've learned. It's never big enough. In all honesty, it's never big enough. My basement, about 2,200 square feet that I had dedicated to equipment, I have it stuffed in there. If you look at some of my previous videos, just stuffed in there. So when I decided to build a building, I wanted to build it as big as I could. So I built the building as big as my space could hold here. And even still, it's not big enough. And granted, this is just me and my kids, some local kids that work out. This isn't I'm not gaining anything monetarily from this. But it's never big enough. So part of the challenge in anything in life is just accepting the fact that this left brain dopamine driven, testosterone laden brain is never going to be satisfied. And just recognizing that and coming into terms with that, being at peace with the fact that it's never going to be big enough, you're never going to have enough. It just is and that's coming from someone who's got the luxury of more space than anyone I know in the home gym world to put stuff. It's not enough for me. And I just realized and made peace with this left brain part of me that's just never satisfied. And it's okay. It's always going to do its thing as long as I don't become attached to it, as long as my identity doesn't become wrapped up and my worth doesn't become wrapped up in how much or how little I have, and competing with the Joneses in the Instagram gym world. The last 6 months especially, I've come to this space where I recognize I can't just fit everything I ever wanted. Some things have to go. Even with the luxury of all the space I have, some things have to go. I can't keep and have everything. That being said, from a practical perspective, if and when you decide to build a building, I would do like me. Look, I still got to put solar in here. I've still got intentions to put solar in here, so I'm just completely solar powered. But I haven't put it in because it costs a freaking fortune, and I've already had to convince my wife that all this is worth it, if you know what I mean. But I would rather have a bigger space and down the road put extra stuff in it than have a smaller space with everything finished right away. That would be my advice to you when you build it. If you build an outbuilding, you get a house, you can't go too big. Someone told me this, and I realized, you can't big an outbuilding too big. This is almost 10,000 square feet, and it's not big enough. It just isn't. But you can't go too big when you build a space for your home gym. All right, number 4, the 4th thing I've learned, and I guess it's an oxymoron. Don't take it from me because I have the luxury of all the space. Quality is more important than quantity. Quality is more important than quantity as far as gym equipment comes. It just is. So most of us are limited in what we can have. There's only space, I literally just counted my leg machines. I've got 80 leg machines. Granted, if this was a commercial gym, I would have to have twice the space at least, or 3 times the space to fit the amount of leg equipment I have comfortably. But that being said, don't sacrifice trying to have a bunch of equipment just for quality. quality, honestly, is more important, because you want something that you're going to love, that you appreciate, that you're going to use. And just quality just matters more than quantity. So you can talk about equipment brands or 7 gauge versus 11 gauge versus 14 gauge. That's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about like the quality of the movement, the quality of the biomechanics, the quality, the durability or whatever is a different discussion. For me, I personally don't really care if it's got a Nebula sticker or a Bolt sticker or whatever sticker. I really don't care. If the piece biomechanically like stimulates me and I get crazy contraction, or I just like the piece, I don't really care about what the sticker or name brand is. I mean, it's kind of like other, people, it's Gucci or it's Louis Vuitton. We get so wrapped up in the marketing aspect of this crap and the branding that we forget, like, there are more important things than branding. So that goes along with my number 3. Don't always believe the hype. And sometimes it's hard because you don't get to try equipment out. You're subject to what other people are showing you and demonstrating on Instagram or the internet or whatever fitness influencers that we hold in high esteem that think they know more than us. Sometimes that's the hard thing, but don't always believe the hype. I mean, there are multiple pieces that, in this evolution I had that I've got that people are all talking wonderful about it. And it just never lived up to the hype. And sometimes it's the exact opposite. Pieces that people think are amazing, or that aren't very good, are actually amazing in my opinion. So, have the courage to just be your own person, be your own person that likes or dislikes things, and don't follow the hype always, especially in the equipment world, because it's like, oh, this guy says this piece is awesome. All of a sudden the price gets jacked up unnecessarily so. And it's just like all fake hype. Part of the challenge is the equipment world has changed the last few years with a lot of resellers. You can't get things at the same price you always could. I hate it, but that's just the nature of the way it is. It's just the nature of the supply and demand, and mostly of the fake hype or lack of hype that we give to certain pieces because of someone else's opinion. Like, I could care less what some professional bodybuilder says who's sponsored by Panada or some other brand to tell me his opinion, because it's always biased. He's trying to sell me something. So, unfortunately, there aren't enough unbiased opinions in this industry to make, logical, wise decisions off of. But just have the courage to don't believe the hype. My number two, this is very practical advice. Very practical advice. Just be patient. Be patient, honestly. That's the hardest thing for a human to do, because the consumerism, particularly in the Western world, has wired us to want instant gratification, to want things right now. And marketers know how to manipulate us. They know how to manipulate our neurochemistry to make us buy when it's probably not the wisest decision. There's so many pieces that I've bought rashly because of the fake appearance of scarcity that I regret. Just be patient. Like, most pieces, not all of them, but most of them, with patience, you can find with time. Just because that's the nature of this market. Things go up and down, equipment comes on the market. And honestly, like I said, it often boils down to whatever hype somebody believes in at the current moment because of someone else's opinion, which is all just crap to begin with. But just be patient. Like, if there's a piece that you really want, just wait for it. Don't feel like you got to spend $5,000 or whatever jacked up price someone has for it, just because there's the idea of fake scarcity. Like, our brains are so wired based on scarcity to just be manipulated, and that marketers know that, and they feed off of that. My number one thing that I've learned, honestly, it sounds cliche, but it's just enjoy the process. Like, there isn't ever going to be a point, like I said beginning in the video, where your left brain is going to be satisfied. You have to connect to this right brain emotional, beyond the logical, analytical mind to just recognize, all that exists is right now. And what I have is perfect. Like, whatever, I can build muscle doing this. And that's another thing. Like, don't let your obsession with collecting stuff get in the way of your training. Like, the whole objective is to have stuff to use it, to have stuff to build muscle, to look good, to actually use it, not just collecting dust. I mean, this isn't cars. We're sitting in a garage And granted, I guess this is coming from me who has all this equipment sometimes I can't get to, but I still love, and I actively use everything I have. Like, I refuse to have a piece in my gym. I don't care how iconic it is, how vintage it is, how much it's potentially worth if I don't use it. I refuse. Like, that's one of the big things for me. It's more than just the freaking idea of collecting. It's more than the idea of having more than somebody else. It's more than the idea of boosting my ego based on whatever everybody else has, to think that I'm somehow better. So, but honestly, enjoy the process. Enjoy collecting, because it's fun and it's never going to end. Independent of how much you try to convince your wife that it will, and they think you're crazy, which, it is there's definitely a psychological illness. It's definitely not as common as some other psychological illnesses and other collectors, like into cars, vintage, sports cars and other stuff like that. But it's still, honestly, a psychological illness. So tell me what you guys think. What have you learned in this process of, just acquiring, building, and having your own gym space? Like, comment, subscribe below. Lots of cool more content coming your way. Have an amazing day.